Historians review a 1911 portrait and discover one family member was never there. Dr. Amanda Foster adjusted her reading glasses as she examined the sepia-toned photograph that had arrived at the Boston Historical Society that morning. The donor, Mrs. Catherine Mills, had explained that it was a family portrait from 1911, discovered in her late grandmother's attic. What made it particularly interesting was the note attached, "The Henley family, Boston, Massachusetts, 1911, 5 generations together." The photograph showed 7 people arranged in the formal style typical of the early 1900s. An elderly patriarch sat in the center, surrounded by what appeared to be his descendants, middle-aged adults, younger couples, and children. Their clothing was well-tailored, suggesting a family of means, and the studio setting indicated this had been a significant occasion worth commemorating professionally. Amanda had been documenting Boston family histories for over 15 years, and something about this particular image nagged at her. The composition was perfect, almost too perfect. Each family member was positioned with mathematical precision, their expressions uniform in that serious, formal way that early photography demanded. But as she studied the faces more carefully, one figure caught her attention. Standing slightly behind the seated patriarch was a young woman, perhaps in her 20s, wearing a dark dress with intricate beadwork. Her pose was identical to the others, hands folded, slight turn toward the camera, eyes focused straight ahead. Yet something felt different about her presence in the photograph. Amanda reached for her magnifying glass and examined the woman more closely. The detail was remarkable for a 1911 photograph. She could see individual beads on the dress, the texture of the fabric, even the delicate chain of a locket around the woman's neck. But there was something about the lighting on her face, a subtle difference in the shadows that didn't quite match the rest of the family. She made a note to research the Henley family in Boston's historical records. After decades of examining family photographs, Amanda had learned to trust her instincts when something seemed unusual. This image was hiding a story, and she intended to discover what it was. The afternoon light was fading as she carefully filed the photograph, already planning her investigation for the following day. The next morning found Amanda in the basement archives of the Boston Public Library, surrounded by city directories, census records, and newspaper files from the early 1900s. The Henley family had been prominent in Boston's business community, with the patriarch William Henley owning a successful shipping company that operated out of Boston Harbor. The 1910 census listed the Henley household as containing 6 people: William and his wife Margaret, their son Robert and daughter-in-law Sarah, and 2 grandchildren, Thomas and Elizabeth. But the photograph clearly showed 7 people, including the mysterious young woman who didn't appear in any official records. Amanda cross-referenced the family information with newspaper society pages from 1911. The Henleys appeared frequently in accounts of charity events and business gatherings, but she found no mention of the additional family member. Even more puzzling, when she located William Henley's obituary from 1915, it listed only the same 6 family members as survivors. Her research took an interesting turn when she discovered a collection of letters in the Massachusetts Historical Society's archives. The correspondence, donated by a Henley descendant in 1987, included personal letters between family members dating from 1905 to 1920. Amanda spent the afternoon reading through them, looking for any reference to the woman in the photograph. What she found instead was a series of letters from 1911 that seemed to dance around a family tragedy. Robert Henley had written to his cousin in New York, "The family portrait session was difficult for all of us, particularly Father. We hoped the photographer was able to capture what we wanted to preserve." His wife Sarah had written to her sister, "The sitting took much longer than expected. There were technical difficulties that required multiple exposures." The letter suggested that the 1911 portrait session had been emotionally charged and technically complicated, but they didn't explain why. Amanda made copies of the relevant correspondence and returned to the Historical Society, more convinced than ever that the photograph contained a deliberately hidden story. As she walked back through Boston's historic streets, Amanda couldn't shake the feeling that the young woman in the photograph was the key to understanding what the Henley family had been trying to preserve, or perhaps conceal, in their formal portrait. Amanda's investigation led her to the Cambridge offices of Hartwell and Associates, a photography studio that had been in continuous operation since 1898. The current owner, Michael Hartwell, was the great-grandson of the original proprietor and maintained extensive archives of the studio's historical work. When Amanda explained her research about the 1911 Henley portrait, his expression grew thoughtful. "The Henley Commission," he said, leading her to a climate-controlled storage room filled with filing cabinets. "My great-grandfather kept detailed records of all his work, and I remember seeing references to that particular session. It was apparently one of his most challenging assignments." The studio's records revealed that the Henley portrait had required 3 separate sessions over 2 weeks in March 1911. This was highly unusual, as most family portraits were completed in a single sitting. The photographer's notes, written in careful script, documented technical problems that had required innovative solutions. Multiple exposure complications. One entry read, "Client requests necessitate advanced composition techniques. Additional equipment required for proper integration of all elements." Another note was more revealing. "Family's emotional state requires sensitive handling. Memorial aspect of commission demands utmost care and discretion." Michael showed Amanda examples of other work from the same period. His great-grandfather had been known for technical innovation, particularly in the area of composite photography, the practice of combining multiple images into a single, seamless photograph. This technique was sometimes used to create memorial portraits that included deceased family members. "Look at this," Michael said, pulling out a photograph from 1909. "This family wanted to include their son who had died in a factory accident. Great-grandfather photographed the family, then used the son's existing portrait to create this composite image. The technique was quite advanced for the time." Amanda studied the composite photograph, noting how skillfully the deceased son had been integrated into the family group. The lighting and perspective were perfectly matched, making it impossible to tell that he hadn't been present for the actual sitting. This explained the technical complexity of the Henley Commission and suggested why the young woman in their portrait might seem somehow different from the other family members. But if the woman was deceased and had been added to the portrait posthumously, why didn't she appear in any family records? Amanda thanked Michael for his help and left with copies of the studio's documentation, knowing she needed to dig deeper into the Henley family's personal history to understand who this mysterious woman had been and why her inclusion had been so important to them. Amanda's breakthrough came from an unexpected source, the records of Mount Auburn Cemetery in Cambridge. While searching for Henley family burial plots, she discovered a grave marker for beloved daughter, with only initials, EMH, and dates spanning from 1888 to 1910. The location was in the same family section as William and Margaret Henley's eventual burial sites. The cemetery's burial records provided the full name, Eleanor Margaret Henley, age 22, who had died in December 1910, just 3 months before the family portrait was taken. But Eleanor didn't appear in any census records or city directories as a Henley family member. This discrepancy led Amanda to examine the social customs and legal practices of 1910 Boston more carefully. Her research revealed a dark aspect of early 20th century family life. Eleanor had likely been what was euphemistically called a private family matter, an unmarried daughter who had given birth to a child. In 1910 Boston society, such situations were often handled by sending the young woman away during her pregnancy and quietly arranging for the child's adoption or care. Amanda found confirmation in a series of private letters discovered in the Massachusetts Historical Society's uncatalogued donations. These letters between Margaret Henley and her sister in Vermont revealed the family's painful situation. Eleanor had been sent to stay with relatives in 1909 and had died from complications following childbirth in a small Vermont town, far from Boston's social circles. "William refuses to speak of it," one letter read, "but I know he blames himself for sending her away. The child is being cared for by the church, and we pray daily for Eleanor's soul." Another letter, dated February 1911, was more revealing. "William has commissioned a family portrait. He insists that Eleanor must be included, that she belongs with us despite everything. I pray the photographer can accomplish what he promises." The portrait session had been the grieving father's way of reunifying his family posthumously, including the daughter whose existence had been erased from public records due to social conventions of the time. The technical complexity documented in the photographer's notes now made perfect sense. They had been working to seamlessly integrate Eleanor's image into the family group, using her existing portrait to create the illusion that she had been present for the sitting. This explained why Eleanor appeared in the photograph but not in any official family records. Her death had occurred away from Boston, and her earlier absence from city directories reflected the family's attempt to protect her reputation during her pregnancy. Amanda arranged to meet with Dr. Jennifer Walsh, a photography historian at the New England School of Photography, to better understand the technical aspects of creating the Henley family composite. Dr. Walsh's expertise in early 20th century photographic techniques would be crucial for understanding how the photographer had achieved such a seamless integration of Eleanor's image. "What you're describing," Dr. Walsh said as she examined Amanda's documentation, "represents some of the most advanced composite work of its era. Creating a convincing group portrait that includes a deceased family member required extraordinary skill and specialized equipment that most studios didn't possess." They examined the original Henley photograph under specialized lighting that revealed subtle differences in grain structure and contrast. Dr. Walsh pointed to almost imperceptible variations in the photographic emulsion around Eleanor's figure. Here you can see evidence of the composite technique. The photographer would have used Eleanor's existing portrait as the source material, then carefully matched the lighting, perspective, and scale to integrate her seamlessly into the family group. The process would have been painstaking. The photographer would have had to create multiple test exposures, adjusting the lighting and positioning of the living family members to match Eleanor's original portrait. The studio's records indicated that this had required special lighting equipment and multiple sessions to achieve the desired result. The emotional challenge would have been as significant as the technical one, Dr. Walsh observed. The family was essentially restaging a gathering that could never actually occur, trying to create a memento that honored their lost daughter while presenting a unified family image for posterity. Amanda learned that such memorial composites were not uncommon in the early 1900s, but they were typically obvious in their construction, clearly showing that one person had been added to an existing group. The Henley portrait was remarkable for its seamless integration, making Eleanor appear as naturally present as the living family members. Dr. Walsh's analysis also revealed that the photographer had gone beyond simple composition. Subtle adjustments to shadows, reflections, and even the positioning of other family members had been made to accommodate Eleanor's presence. The result was a photograph that appeared completely natural, while actually representing hours of careful planning and technical expertise. This level of care and sophistication suggested that the Henley Family Commission had been deeply meaningful to both the family and the photographer. It wasn't simply a matter of adding Eleanor to a group photograph. It was an attempt to restore the family wholeness that had been lost to tragedy and social convention. Amanda's search for Eleanor's existing portrait led her to the Vermont Historical Society, where records from small towns often preserved documentation that had been lost in larger cities. In the archives of Brattleboro, Vermont, she found references to Eleanor Henley in the records of St. Mary's Home for Unwed Mothers, an institution that had operated from 1875 to 1925. The records, maintained by the Catholic Church and donated to the Historical Society in 1970, revealed Eleanor's full story. She had arrived at St. Mary's in April 1909, at age 21, and had given birth to a daughter in September of that year. The child, named Mary, had been placed with a local farming family for adoption. Eleanor had remained at the home, working as a seamstress and helping with other residents, until her death from pneumonia in December 1910. More importantly for Amanda's research, the records included a portrait of Eleanor taken at St. Mary's in early 1910. The photograph showed a young woman in a dark dress with intricate beadwork, the same dress she wore in the Henley family portrait. This confirmed that Eleanor's existing portrait had been the source material for the composite photograph. Sister Catherine Murphy, the elderly archivist at the Vermont Historical Society, had additional insights. St. Mary's was progressive for its time, she explained. They encouraged the young women to maintain contact with their families when possible, and they kept photographic records of all residents. Many families used these portraits for memorial purposes when tragedies occurred. The St. Mary's records also revealed Eleanor's character and circumstances. She had been described as intelligent and artistic, with exceptional skill in needlework and design. Her pregnancy had resulted from a relationship with a young man who had died in an industrial accident before he could marry her, a detail that explained the family's protective response to her situation. Amanda found letters that Eleanor had written to her mother during her time at St. Mary's. These letters revealed a young woman who was both grateful for her family's support and deeply saddened by her separation from them. "I dream of being home again," one letter read, "of sitting with Father in the garden and helping Mother with her charitable work. I know my situation has brought shame, but I hope someday to return to the family I love so dearly." Eleanor's death had devastated the family, particularly her father, who felt responsible for sending her away. The composite portrait had been his way of symbolically reuniting the family and ensuring that Eleanor would be remembered as part of the Henley legacy, despite the circumstances that had separated them in life. Amanda returned to Boston with copies of Eleanor's Vermont records and the revelation that the mysterious family member had been deliberately included in the portrait to heal a family torn apart by tragedy and social convention. But her investigation took another turn when she examined the Henley portrait alongside Eleanor's individual photograph from St. Mary's home. Under magnification, Amanda noticed details that had been altered in the composite image. Eleanor's expression in the family portrait was subtly different from her individual photograph. Her face had been adjusted to appear happier, more at peace. The photographer had not simply copied Eleanor's existing image, but had carefully modified it to show her as the family wanted to remember her. Dr. Walsh's analysis revealed the sophistication of these modifications. The photographer essentially painted with light, she explained, using multiple exposures and careful darkroom work to adjust Eleanor's expression, posture, and even the details of her clothing, to better integrate her into the family group. The beadwork on Eleanor's dress had been enhanced to make it more visible and elegant. Her posture had been adjusted to appear more confident and relaxed. Most significantly, her facial expression had been softened to suggest contentment and peace rather than the melancholy that was evident in her original portrait. Amanda realized that the Henley family portrait was not just a technical achievement, but an act of love and restoration. William Henley had commissioned not just Eleanor's inclusion in the family group, but her transformation into the daughter he remembered and wished to preserve for posterity. The photographer's records revealed additional details about the commission. William Henley had paid 3 times the normal rate for the portrait and had requested that all working materials be destroyed after completion. He wanted no evidence of the composite technique to remain, ensuring that future generations would see Eleanor as naturally present with her family. This explained why the portrait had been so seamlessly executed and why no obvious signs of composite work were visible. The photographer had been hired not just to create a memorial, but to rewrite history, presenting the Henley family as complete and unified despite the tragedy that had torn them apart. The commission represented a father's attempt to protect his daughter's memory and restore her place in the family legacy. By including Eleanor in the formal portrait, William Henley had ensured that she would be remembered not as a source of family shame, but as a beloved daughter who belonged among them for all time. Amanda's research revealed that the Henley family's careful preservation of Eleanor's memory had extended beyond the composite portrait. In the family papers housed at the Massachusetts Historical Society, she found evidence that Eleanor had been quietly acknowledged within the family circle, even as her existence was hidden from public records. Margaret Henley's personal correspondence showed that she had maintained contact with Eleanor's daughter Mary through intermediaries. Small gifts and letters had been sent to Vermont, and Margaret had quietly established a trust fund to ensure Mary's education and welfare. The family had accepted responsibility for Eleanor's child while protecting all parties from social scandal. The trust fund records, maintained by a Boston law firm that had served the Henley family for generations, showed payments continuing until 1925, when Mary would have reached adulthood. The final entry noted that Mary had married a Vermont farmer and requested that contact be discontinued, wanting to focus on her own family without reminders of her complex origins. Amanda also discovered that William Henley had commissioned additional portraits of Eleanor during the years following her death. The same photographer had created several smaller images, using Eleanor's original portrait as source material, which were displayed privately in the family home. These were never shown to visitors, but were treasured by the family as reminders of their lost daughter. The family's friends and business associates had apparently accepted the 7-member composition in the formal portrait without question. Society pages from 1911 reference the handsome Henley family portrait without noting anything unusual about its composition. This suggested that either the composite work was extraordinarily convincing or that the family's social circle was aware of Eleanor's situation and chose to respect the family's desired narrative. Robert Henley's letters to relatives revealed that the portrait had brought comfort to his father during his final years. "Father often sits in his study looking at our family photograph," one letter read. "He seems to find peace in seeing Eleanor among us again. Mother says he speaks to the portrait sometimes, telling Eleanor about family news and asking for her blessing on family decisions. The portrait had served its intended purpose, allowing the family to maintain Eleanor's presence in their daily lives while protecting her reputation and their own social standing. It represented a remarkable example of how families navigated the complex social expectations of early 20th century America while preserving their love for members who had been lost to tragedy and circumstance. After 3 months of investigation, Amanda prepared to present her findings to the Boston Historical Society's Board of Directors. The Henley family portrait had revealed a story that illuminated both the technical capabilities of early photography and the emotional complexity of American family life in 1910. The presentation drew historians, photographers, and members of the Henley family's surviving descendants. Mrs. Catherine Mills, who had donated the original photograph, attended along with several cousins who had inherited other family materials. Amanda's research had answered questions that had puzzled the family for generations. "We always wondered why the portrait showed 7 people when family stories only mentioned 6, said Robert Mills, Catherine's nephew. "Grandmother used to point to the young woman in the back and say she was family, but she never explained who she was or what had happened to her." Amanda's presentation revealed not just Eleanor's identity, but the extraordinary lengths to which the family had gone to preserve her memory. The composite portrait represented a sophisticated technical achievement that had allowed a grieving father to reunify his family symbolically while navigating the social constraints of his era. Dr. Walsh's technical analysis demonstrated how advanced the photographer's work had been. The seamless integration of Eleanor's image required equipment and expertise that represented the cutting edge of 1910 photography. The portrait stood as a testament to both artistic skill and emotional dedication. The audience was particularly moved by the revelation of Eleanor's story and the family's quiet efforts to care for her daughter. The trust fund records and ongoing correspondence showed a family that had accepted responsibility for the consequences of tragedy while working within social expectations to protect all parties involved. Mrs. Mills approached Amanda after the presentation with tears in her eyes. "I'm so grateful you uncovered Eleanor's story," she said. "All these years we knew someone was missing from family stories, but we didn't know who or why. Now we can finally understand and honor her memory properly." The Boston Historical Society decided to acquire the portrait and Eleanor's story for their permanent collection, recognizing both its technical significance and its human importance. The photograph would serve as an example of how families preserved love and connection despite social conventions that sought to separate them. Amanda realized that her investigation had done more than solve a historical puzzle. It had restored a family member to her rightful place in the Henley legacy and revealed the extraordinary lengths to which love and grief could drive human creativity and determination. 6 months after her initial discovery, Amanda stood in the Boston Historical Society's main gallery, where the Henley family portrait now occupied a place of honor. The accompanying display told Eleanor's complete story, including excerpts from family letters, documentation of the composite technique, and photographs from St. Mary's home that provided context for her situation. The exhibition had drawn significant attention from both historical researchers and the general public. The portrait served as a powerful example of how photography could be used to preserve memory and restore family connections that had been disrupted by social convention and tragedy. Eleanor's great-granddaughter, Sarah Chen, had traveled from California after learning about the exhibition. She had never known about Eleanor's existence but had inherited a small locket that matched the one visible in the portrait. The discovery had connected her to a family history that had been lost for over a century. "It's remarkable to finally understand where this locket came from," Sarah said, examining the portrait carefully. "My grandmother always said it had belonged to someone special, but she never explained who. Now I know it was Eleanor's, and it connects me to this incredible story of love and loss." The technical aspects of the portrait had also attracted attention from photography historians and conservators. The seamless composite work was being studied as an example of advanced techniques that predated similar work by several decades. The photographer's innovation in creating such a convincing family reunion represented a significant achievement in early photographic art. Amanda's research had revealed that several other families had commissioned similar memorial composites during the same period, suggesting that the Henley portrait was part of a broader practice of using photography to address family tragedies and social complications. The Boston Historical Society was now actively seeking other examples of such work. The story had also prompted discussions about how social conventions had shaped family histories and the lengths to which people had gone to preserve connections, despite external pressures. Eleanor's story represented countless other young women whose experiences had been hidden or forgotten due to the social expectations of their era. As Amanda looked at the portrait in its gallery setting, she reflected on how the investigation had transformed her understanding of both photography and family history. What had begun as a routine examination of a donated photograph had revealed a story of extraordinary love, technical innovation, and human resilience. The young woman who had seemed mysteriously out of place in the 1911 portrait was now recognized as Eleanor Margaret Henley, a beloved daughter whose place in her family had been preserved through the combined efforts of grief, love, and artistic skill. Her presence in the photograph was no longer a mystery, but a testament to the enduring power of family bonds that could transcend even death and social convention. The portrait's true meaning had finally been revealed. It was not just a family photograph, but a declaration that love could overcome separation, that memory could triumph over social pressure, and that sometimes the most important family members were those whose stories had been deliberately hidden from history.